Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Ground and Pound podcast, the reigning, defending, undefeated podcast, the show where we're hitting you with the elbows of knowledge. And as always, I'm followed every single week by this man, and he is my co host, Carlos. What's happening, Carlos?
Absolutely nothing, brother.
Absolutely nothing. Well, there is something taking place this weekend in Seattle, Washington. It's called UFC Fight Night. Cejudo taking on Song Yadong. But before we do go into the card and break down the card here over at the Ground and Pound podcast, hit that like and subscribe button if you enjoy the content. And before we do go on and break down this week's card, we've got a little UFC recap to talk about from last week. Cannonier taking on Rodriguez. Honestly, a pretty decent card. The main event was a banger, close decision. Some new youngsters, up and comers coming up, which obviously we're going to discuss. And overall, what was your thoughts on last week's card, Carlos?
I enjoyed it. There was a lot of tough fights. Still, we we picked some of the fighters that we thought would win. Came up a little short. Not a problem. I think we both did pretty good.
Mm.
I think I'm just going to throw this out there. I think I won up you this week as usual, but we'll make that hopefully making that a long term thing. Um, I was surprised at the outcome of the main event. I had a feeling he might pull it out, but
Mm.
you know, RoboCop, I thought a good showing. So all in all, it was a pretty good card.
Yeah, and just to you brushed over that real quick. I got to address that. I think you won the battle, but the war isn't over, my friend. Last week I think you outpicked me by one last week. I will say my dog of the week did win on consecutive occasions. Whaley the week before, and Sadakov winning with that head kick. Cut to the eye, where a little bit of controversy of the Bonfim brother saying that he couldn't see, maybe there was some miscommunication there. But end of the day, it worked out. Dog of the week hit again, so another reason to like and subscribe. I think we're 4-2 on that underdog play. And yeah, I was a little bit surprised that Cannonier was able to withstand the barrage in that first round. He got dropped twice, and that was pretty crazy. But ultimately, I actually texted my buddy and said to him before the fight, I feel like if this gets out of like round three or round two, that Cannonier might come back and Rodriguez might be in trouble. But it didn't even take the first round. Rodriguez looked like he was pretty gassed after that one. But got to give credit to Carlos last week. He did beat me last week. I actually think about 75-80% way through the card. He was perfect, and I texted him. Maybe it was because I jinxed him. I don't know. But yeah, he was rolling last week. So, like I said, if you like the content, over here you got a performer fighter over here picking every single card. Same with myself, somebody who's been around and picked fights for a long time. Hit that like, hit that subscribe button. We pick underdogs, for you guys to bet on too, bet and insight. And one of the topics that we will discuss, which was on the main card last week, was the Rodolfo Vieira taking on Andre Petrovsky. Very, very close decision. How did you feel that the fight went, Carlos? And did you agree with the decision?
I agree with the decision. I didn't think it was a travesty. I thought it was a close fight. Um, like I said, maybe I was biased, but biased. I just thought that Vieira was a little busier in the first round, definitely in the second. I thought he pulled it out, but they gave it to Petrosky after that third round. Third round, he picked up the pace. I kind of knew Vieira was not going to be able to keep up with him. It is what it is. He's an older guy. He's cuts a lot of weight. At least it looks that way. And his striking may not be his strength, but he was outstriking Petrosky when they were trying to go technical, stand up. But as soon as he pushed the pace turned it into a fight. Uh, he got the best of Vieira. So I'm okay with the decision. I thought it was pretty good. Both guys visibly looked tired throughout that fight, though.
Yeah, yeah. Tired was an understatement. I think I thought at one point they might have to bring in the defibrillator at the end, but yeah, the first round and the second round I gave both to Rodolfo. I thought the third went to Petrosky, but maybe again, like Carlos said, maybe a little bit of bias because we obviously both did pick Rodolfo. But I'm not. It's not one of the ones where I'm unhappy with the decision purely because of the fact that every single round was super close. I feel like it's one of those fights where you have the jab taken on the right hand. Petrosky landed more of the right hand, which is the big power shot, whereas Rodolfo is landing more of the jab. Ultimately, that led to sway the judges because he's landing that bigger shot. I think Rodolfo's inability to get the fight to the ground really hurt him as well. And as we've talked about before, both guys pretty jacked guys, so the lactic acid does build up very quickly, and gas tank on both of their sides is not their strong suit. So, I mean, ultimately, I didn't disagree with the decision, but I was a little upset with the fact that the decision didn't go my way. But it's one of those ones where, you leave it in the hands of the judges and you never know what's going to happen. And I don't think either guy could really be that disappointed in their loss because they just didn't do enough. And, kind of speaking of not doing enough, did you think that that's something that moving forward that Petrosky can learn from is to, just to be a little bit more active, or do you think that he's just simply not UFC level, Carlos?
Well, I mean, I think his grappling is UFC level, but his fighting isn't really there. And that's why when you see him go up against guys that know how to wrestle but have decent stand up, he's never going to get the better of them. Stand up, you got to be ready to. He you don't have to like getting hit. You just have to not mind getting hit. And he's not a big fan of like mixing it up and taking a shot to give a shot, or taking chances. So I don't see him like being anything big in the division. But he'll beat guys that know how to grapple, have decent stand up, and if he pushes the pace, he does get tired in round two. And if it goes to three, he will be dead tired. So luckily, he had a good matchup with Vieira where he was at least able to, or young enough to push the pace on him.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, for Rodolfo, I mean, the problem with him as well is because he's on the older side and spent a lot of time doing jiu-jitsu at a high level. He's just not been able to sort of catch up his striking to suit MMA at this level. And I think the problem with him is, and I don't know what your take is on his striking, Carlos. Obviously, that it does suck, but he looks to me like he's always thinking in there. Like it looks like he has to sort of think about each strike he's going to throw and how he's going to throw it. It doesn't look like it comes very natural to him. And for Petrosky, honestly, like I mean, I don't like the hair. I don't really like the gas tank. There's a lot of things I don't like, but in this one, hats off to him. At the end of the day, he did get it done. And moving forward, I'd like to see him push the pace and maybe work on his striking a little bit more to get more volume. But yeah, same with Rodolfo. Push the pace, work on your cardio, keep working on the striking, and if you can't get the fight to the ground, then you know pretty much how these fights are going to end between these two. The co-main event with Zalal and Calvin Kattar, I mean, it was a tough pill to swallow, and I'll pass this one over to Carlos to talk a little bit about first. But what were your thoughts on the fight and how you saw it going, and what's next for Calvin Kattar?
When you're trying to work on, or at least working to try to hit somebody that's quicker and a little faster than you, it's got good foot speed, very elusive. It gets very frustrating because as soon as you throw, he's gone. And when you're throwing and he's never going to be there, that's when you have to learn. Like, you know what? I got a couple options. I got to feint, make him move when he doesn't want to. I got to time him on the way inside, or I got to mix it up and make it a dirty fight just to create some openings that hopefully you can exploit because somebody that quick might just counter, and catch you.
Yeah.
But Calvin didn't try to mix it up. He didn't try to do anything. Well, in the third round he did, and had a little success. And I just think that. But it would be nice if you were to engage. You know what I mean? Like you were just talking about, the jab and the right hand. Well, he was very content with just landing a jab and a 1-2, jab and a 1-2, which is fine. I would be content with that too. I don't want to take any damage as well. But with that victory, what does it look like? Does it look like you're ready for the next level of competition? It doesn't even look like you're ready to fight Calvin again.
Mm.
I just think it's nothing to get excited about, nothing for the fans to get excited about, none for the matchmakers to get excited about. But, it's a good boost and probably throws him into the top 10, I think.
Yeah, and that's a nice segue for me to talk about what I was going to say too. And is that how can you be happy with that performance? Like, I know it's a win, like and I'll get the positives out the way from the Zalal side first. Is that he showed up and he did what he had to do. Like Carlos said, he fought behind a jab. He was the quicker guy. He used his physical advantages that he had over Calvin to good effect. And Zalal is somebody as well. I will say that I've bet on in the past. He's come through for me many times, and when it comes to this matchup, is there a bias? Absolutely. I'll openly admit there's a complete bias. I wanted Calvin, not just from the fact that I threw money on him, but also because of the fact that as a fan, each week we tune in to see a fight, right? The co-main event of a UFC pay-per-view, the biggest organization in MMA, and we're watching a guy on his bike being roadrunner the whole time, throwing a jab and running away. The whole third round, I don't think Zalal even hardly threw a punch. So he literally looked like he just wanted to run and avoid and run away from Calvin. And my whole thing was, yeah, sure, that was his advantage. That was what won him the fight. But like Carlos said, what does that do for you in terms of moving up into the rankings? And what does that say to the UFC? To me, what that says is I could jab this guy and run around, and that doesn't tell me that you're going to put me in a main event. That doesn't tell me that I'm going to come out and get finishes and put on a show for the crowd. At the end, the crowd was booing because they knew when he got his hand raised that he had basically just run around and not done enough. Well, he'd done enough, but it wasn't an entertaining fight from a fan perspective and putting asses in seats. And yeah, I was kind of ticked off, honestly, because I think Zalal is better than that. I think that Calvin didn't necessarily get to show everything that he wanted to show, which obviously is unfortunate for him. And yeah, that's why I'm giving him the name Zalal the Roadrunner, because all he wants to do is run. I wasn't impressed. I was kind of ticked off, like I said. I mean, I'm surprised he didn't maybe try to mix in the grappling. Instead, he decided to become a marathon runner. So yeah, do better next time, Zalal. I wasn't really that impressed. And as far as Calvin, I mean, what's next for Calvin? Like Carlos said, I mean, foot speed isn't necessarily there anymore. And I will just say that somebody that's had an ACL tear and a knee injury, that you do lose a step when you have a serious knee injury. Maybe that's part of the reason Calvin is slowing down. But what do you think's next for Calvin, Carlos?
I think there's a lot of good matchups for him. My whole thing is for him to just come back and get consistent. To me right now, it doesn't really matter who he's fighting. I know it probably matters to him. It just matters to come back in, get some wins, get back on a roll. And this could have been a good win for him if he was ready to mix it up and make it a little dirty. Um, the one thing about this is like Calvin's got the skill get back to throwing in combination. When he was fighting Andre Fili, when he was fighting uh, Jeremy Stevens, Shane Burgos, he's throwing in combinations. Punches and bunches is good, and he's very technical when he does it. And he's getting away from that, and he's going to I'm going to throw one punch. I'm going to hurt you with one punch or two, 1-2, and it's like that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. But when you're fighting guys that are a little bit quicker, you're gonna have to do a little more than jab and two, jab and two, jab and the overhand. You're gonna have to try to mix it up. Throw some kicks. I would have loved to see him throw some kicks and attack his base a little bit, make him actually lose a little bit of that speed. But
Hmm.
you know, um, hopefully next time out he can pick up on that.
Yeah, I mean, I will also say as well, like it was a pretty close fight in the respect of the second round. To me, if Calvin would have made the second round look like the third round, I think that we would be looking at a 29-28 for Calvin Kattar. I think that he just didn't necessarily take enough chances in the second or earlier on in the fight. Calvin's used to fighting 5 rounds, so I know that he can go all 5 rounds. He can put up volume. He can mix in takedowns. I would have just liked to have seen him kind of make the fight dirty after the first round. When he realized that Zalal's game plan was basically to be a chicken and run around the octagon on the outside and just throw nothing but a jab, just to, he's trying to obviously plant his feet and throw bombs and land that one big shot. But like Carlos said, mix it in, throw in combinations. I would have loved to have seen him. I know that Calvin's respectable in terms of his wrestling, just to change levels, just for him to give him something to think about. A lot of the time as well with Zalal, like he's throwing that jab, and I would have liked to have seen him, throwing a kick to the body or a kick to the head, and little things just to make it scrappy, like make it dirty. I don't think that when you measure up both guys' willingness to be not necessarily in a brawl, but in a dogfight, an aggressive back and forth dogfight. Calvin's been there; he's done that. I haven't seen that from Zalal. He's trying to fight pretty on the outside. Make it a dogfight. All the best to Calvin at the end of the day. I mean, the guy's, still high up in the rankings. He can still come back. And I would like to see that. As far as Zalal, meet, Roadrunner.
I like Zalal, and it's going to take me back to like a Floyd Mayweather point. Because everybody said Mayweather is a very defensive boxer. You know what I mean? And it's not that he's a defensive boxer. The point of boxing is to hit and not get hit, and Mayweather did that, and that's what made him Floyd Mayweather. And some people just don't like that style, and Zalal kind of did the same thing. Instead of standing and rolling with everything like Mayweather, what he did was he used his foot speed, moved around the outside, and stayed elusive. And there was nothing wrong with winning a fight and not getting hit. Nobody needs to take damage. But those are some of the reasons too why, like, even open scoring is a terrible idea, because it just seems like he kind of knew he was up. Third round comes along, he's like, I'm going to try to coast.
Yeah.
And it makes for a fast. You can see everything coming. You can get out of the way of things. Go for it. Open them up. But there's also nothing wrong with respecting your opponent's power as well. But sometimes it's good to take a chance here and there and make a name for yourself.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, what does the UFC do with that? Like, who's going to look at that performance and think, hey, you know what? I'd love to give him Max Holloway. Like, I'd love to give him somebody high up in the rankings. The UFC, what they're going to do with that. And also as well, like, he gets on the mic as well, and this is the last thing I'll say about it. He gets on the mic at the end, and people are booing. Fans, have a right to boo. They pay the money to go sit in the Apex for those exclusive seats, and you practically run the whole time. And then he turns around. He says, "Well, at the weigh-in, his Calvin's team is talking about light work. He's light work. He's light work." And then he comes out and says, "Like, yeah, like I made your boy look like light work." And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, like, no, you didn't. You didn't make anything look like light work. You made it look like you were on a treadmill. So let's not sit here and pretend, at the end of the fight, like, let's talk trash like you did something. You know what I mean? If he'd have gotten the mic and said, yeah, I know it wasn't necessarily my best performance. I just did what I had to do to win. He's a tough guy. He's a guy high up in the rankings. I did what I had to do. I'd have been like, all right, cool. But when he said what he said at the end, it kind of just ticked me off that little bit more, because I just kind of thought to myself, you knew you didn't have the performance that you wanted. You can't be happy with that performance, and he's grinning and laughing like he did something, basically, So, yeah, I mean, like I said, meet. Simple as
that. Well, just know when you see a guy that's that happy getting that win, number one, he doesn't want to be in a barn burner, which is also okay. But the other thing too is, like, you're not going to get Holloway. You're not going to get Volkanovski. You're not going to get Topuria. So, like, what are you going to do? Like, around him too, because he's starting to get to that point in his career where he's taking a lot of damage. So, I don't know what fight is going to make them seem like it's going to be entertaining. It's going to be fun. But good for Zalal for getting the victory. But we still haven't seen much out of him in terms of being a champion.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to see him when he's always running away.
Yeah.
But yeah, and Carlos mentioned a barn burner, like people not getting in barn burners. Two guys that did get in a barn burner last week was the main event. If you missed that, that was probably the best fight on the card. RoboCop taking on Cannonier, and yeah, it was a tale of two different rounds. I mean, first round, Cannonier comes out, he gets dropped twice. RoboCop looked huge when they stand next to each other at the start when they're touching gloves, compared to Cannonier. He looked like he could fight a light heavyweight the size that he was. But yeah, Cannonier gets dropped twice in that first round. He's able to come back at the slender age of 40 in the 5 round experience that he's got. And RoboCop just looked like he had 1 round of cardio. He looked like he gave it everything in the first round, and he had nothing left in terms of his cardio. And maybe he gassed trying to get the finish. I'm not too sure, but yeah, both guys went back and forth, and overall, Cannonier was able to put pressure on him. And just the commentary team said it, pretty spot on. They were like, just touch. He's just touching the whole time. Cannonier has power. You can see by the way that the man's built, and he's got experience. I think that he knew, the first round, if I can just weather that storm, that it will slowly but surely break RoboCop. And I think me and you are pretty spot on with our breakdowns. I think we both agreed that, we'd never seen him go longer in fights, RoboCop, and, we hadn't necessarily seen his cardio, and that he was going to be dangerous early. So I think, thumbs up to both of us on that one as far as how we saw the fight playing out. But I was expecting RoboCop to land to last a little bit longer than just 1 round. He looked like he was done after the first, but hats off to Cannonier, man. I mean, he showed toughness in that fight after getting dropped. I mean, you could make an argument that was a 10-8 round in the first. So yeah, what was your take on this fight, Carlos?
I assume that if it went the way that it did, that Cannonier was going to win, because I've seen RoboCop look pretty lethargic after the first round. But that's more of me underestimating the fact that Cannonier could get through the punishment of the first round. That's what I underestimated more than anything. I thought RoboCop hits like a tank. He's going to be coming full speed ahead. We've seen Cannonier get tagged lately and start to fall apart. So I went, all right, maybe that's just a sign, and it's not really a sign that he's done, washed up. He doesn't have Cannonier can hit, but he doesn't have big power. He doesn't rip into anything. He kind of just lets his hands go, and if he hits you, he hits you. But he's not trying to put you out with every shot. And he kind of saved it for when he knew RoboCop was pretty much out on his feet, not because of damage, just from being tired. And yeah, it was he took him into the deep waters, and it's the first time I think RoboCop's ever done 5 rounds, so it was new to him, and he definitely took the bait. And hats off to Cannonier for at least enduring the first round.
Yeah,
That was a tough one to.
Yeah, and RoboCop's a tough guy to take shots from. I mean, we see him; he pretty much finishes everybody. That's usually his win condition. Is he's usually finishing people if he's winning fights. And I think the commentary team even made a comment after the first round, like he went for it in the first, and they were saying like, I'm not sure if he's gassed or if he's just slowing down his pace here because he knows that he's got 5 rounds, but. I think he was just done. I think he put so much into that first round that he expected to come out and make a statement, and it didn't go the way that he thought. And that's why I christened Cannonier the comeback king this week, because he showed a lot of toughness. And I'll be honest, if you were somebody that was betting on Cannonier, you had to kind of be sweating it after the first round, getting dropped twice at the age of 40. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what's next for him, because obviously he did lose to Imavov, and I don't think has he fought Khalil Bahalio yet? Can't remember. I'm not
He
sure.
did. I think he did.
I think he
did.
did. So it's yeah. I think you could be right. Yeah. So it's tough. Like, I mean, what's next for Cannonier? I mean, he's just beaten an up and coming guy, but lost to the 2 guys who are probably going to be number 1 and 2 in terms of ranking to go for the belt next. So yeah, it's kind of an interesting one. I'm not sure what they do with Cannonier and what he wants to do. But yeah. Honestly, great fight. This is why I always say, sometimes with the pay-per-views that people put a lot of stock into people's names, and it's not always about the names. Sometimes it's about the guys who want to prove themselves. And I think Cannonier had a point to prove last week that he's not washed up, and he might be 40, but he's still got some miles and some things to prove in this division. So hats off to Cannonier, man. It was a hell of a fight.
I just wanted to say, like, Cannonier. He's a big guy. He's not tall in stature, but he's big. He carries a lot of muscle, and he makes that weight, and he can fight deep into the rounds. But RoboCop is not that guy, and he's very big. And I just wonder if going up a weight class for him would probably be a better idea, or just learn how to pace yourself. I'm not sure if it's the fact that he comes out and tries to get you out of there, just like with Adolfo Vieira, and Petrosky as they both get pretty tired by the second round, and I'm just wondering, like, sometimes when is it time to make that jump? Is that jump going to help you?
Mm.
I think if RoboCop were to jump up in weight, maybe he could last a little bit longer, and he wouldn't look as tired. But
Yeah.
maybe that has to do with his full sprint in the first round. So
Yeah.
I don't know where he goes from here, but a lot of the times when you have big power, it's very hard to learn how to throw just to land. It's not really tapping. It's letting the guy know that you're there, but you're not throwing everything behind it. And when you know you could take guys out with one shot, that's a very difficult thing to learn. And I just don't know if he's going to get that. He's going to get there, in the stand up. Didn't see any of his grappling really. He didn't really try to use it, but I like the guy. I just don't know what's next for him.
Yeah, yeah. I definitely think he has the frame for 205. You know what I mean? I think part of the reason he's not going to go to 205 anytime soon is because I know that he trains with Alex Pereira, so he's not going to want to go up to 205 and be in the same division as Alex and go after the belt. Maybe a little bit of like Aljamain Sterling, Marab friendship there. I don't really know, but he looked huge compared to Cannonier. Like he definitely looked like he's somebody that could fight at 205. And I mean, it's tough because when you were talking about Petrosky and Rodolfo, they have very muscular frames, but they're not necessarily the tallest guys. Whereas RoboCop is like 6'3", and he visibly looks very much taller, and his frame could definitely be somebody that just basically looks way oversized to me to middleweight. So I'm surprised that he was able to last as long as he did. I mean, when he fought against Tavares, he fought 3 rounds. The guy is tough. The guy, like Carlos said as well, has great grappling. I think that he'd make a very good 205er. I think middleweight's probably a little bit more competitive than 205 is. I think RoboCop could probably get into the top 5 of 205. He'd smash guys like Anthony Smith and Delidze and people like that, who are in the 205, Vittori. I think he's in middleweight. Sorry. I think he might have moved up though, but a few of the guys that are at 205 that spring to mind that he, would probably beat him is guys like Pereira and guys like Ankalaev. But ultimately, I think he beats most of the other guys. So maybe something that we see for him in the future. But I don't think he can continue to fight a middleweight if he expects to fight 5 rounds. He's far too big and doesn't have the gas tank. So yeah, ultimately, like I said, good card. I think we both enjoyed that card. If you didn't, see that card, I think you might have missed out, to be perfectly honest. But Carlos and I got another one for you this week in Seattle, Washington, to break down. We've got Henry Cejudo taking on Song Yadong. And before we kind of go through this full card breakdown and give our opinions on each fight and betting insight, what did you when you first came to break down this card, Carlos, and look at it? What did you think? What was your overall opinion?
When I looked at it, I saw like some very competitive matchups that I would like to see. And if you're a casual, most likely you're not gonna look at a card and go, "Yeah, this looks really good," especially this particular one. But I mean, there's some very good matchups here. I like Ricky Simone and Javid Basharat. I think that's going to be a very good fight.
Mm.
I do like because I think it's going to be, like I said, a banger. Is Iwan Cutelaba versus Ibo Aslan. I think that's definitely not going the distance. I know we've had the curse, but I think that one's going to end very quickly. Um, Menifield versus this Julius Walker. Walker looks somewhat solid, but I am predicting that at least Menifield will put him out. I think it's going to be a little competitive, but I think Menifield's going to do that. And all these fights look pretty interesting to me, especially that what's that one I was telling you about? Green Silva versus Baghdasaryan. I'm like,
Yeah, yeah.
that's going to be a war.
Mm, mm.
But
Yeah, there's a few fights on this card. I think matchmaking wise, they've done a good job of kind of giving the fans what they want. That Gene Silver one and the that's definitely one I'm looking at. I don't think there'll be a ton of grappling in that one. It's a striker's delight for sure. And Overall, I was pretty impressed with the card. I think the premise of this one with the main event with Cejudo and Song is, you've got young up and comer that wants to get a viable name on his resume, and you've got Triple C, who wants to kind of get one back after his 2-fight losing streak and show that he's still relevant. And obviously Carlos and I are going to break that down when we get to it. And and as far as the Cutelaba fight, I'm usually the one that puts the curse on it on this channel. So I've said multiple fights now, I think in the last few weeks, are going to end inside the distance, and they don't. So just let it be known this week that Carlos is the one that said that the Cutelaba fight should be a banger. So we'll find out if he's the one putting the curse on people or if it's me. But should be a good card. Overall, I'm pretty happy with it. You ready to break down these fights, Carlos?
Let's do it.
Let's get it. And before we go to the first fight, I just want to say, hit the like and subscribe button if you like the content. Breaking down these cards, giving you the recaps, giving you all this information. And first up, we have got Modestas Bukauskas taking on Raffael Cerqueira. Who do you have in this one, Carlos?
For this fight right here, just based on the fact that I don't know if that was just octagon jitters that Cerqueira had. I don't know if he just didn't have an answer for Aslan's pretty much his onslaught, because he came right at him and was coming guns blazing. That could shock you when somebody comes right after you. I don't know exactly what it was, but he had no answer for anything that Aslan was hammering him with, and that was even before he got rocked. So in this fight, I'm taking Modestas Bukauskas. Bukauskas, that's how you say it. Okay. Sorry, I was being childish. You know what I was going to say. I think that he's all around the better fighter. I don't think he's going to freeze like that. I don't even think Raffael's going to freeze like that in the ring too. I don't necessarily know what the issue is. I saw some video on him. It's not like he fought the highest level before his first fight, but I thought he was going to be a little bit more difficult than getting put out in the first round. But whatever, second chance. I still think that Bukauskas is just a little too much for him, and I think he gets it done probably in the second round.
Every grown man, I think, on the channel watching the video knew exactly what you were going to say, Carlos. But I'm the explosion. I definitely think that I'm with you. I think Modestas Bukauskas gets this one done. Just to kind of touch a little bit upon Raffael, I think Raffael, to be honest with you, is not UFC level. From what I saw on tape, he's on the regional scene. He's beating up guys who just are some of the worst level of competition. I mean, we're talking octagons in backyard sheds. He looks like he's fighting some of the worst competition. What I notice about him is he likes to throw a lot of spinning bullshit. He'll throw like a spinning back kick to the body, and he's hitting it on guys who have absolute beer guts that look like they drive cabs at the weekend. I really questioned his 11-0 before his last fight, obviously, that he lost, that Carlos was talking about. Very padded record, so hard to trust him. And now I've said all of that, watch him come out and look like Alex Pereira. But yeah, ultimately, I think Bukauskas gets this done. One of the things I did like about Bukauskas, which I paid attention to when doing a bit of tape study this week, was in his last fight, they said that he had gone to train at Tom Aspinall's gym, which I really liked. They have a big gym over there with a ton of heavyweights. Tom Aspinall likes to train with loads of different heavyweights from different organizations, Bellator and things like that. So Bukauskas was able to get some really, really good training partners in and train with my current heavyweight champ. And a lot of other people's heavyweight champ. I just want to throw out there, quack, John Jones. I was impressed with that. I think that's a smart move for Bukauskas to do against some bigger guys. And I like the fact that he mixed in some takedowns in his last fight, because he's a pretty stocky. He looks very physically strong in there for a 205er. He does strike me as one of those guys. I don't know about you, Carlos, but he strikes me as one of those guys that's a little bit flat-footed and unathletic, not necessarily that fast twitch, but more of a little bit plodding on the feet. Not necessarily got that kind of coil, that spring, but I'd like to see him mixing some takedowns here. I'd like to see him maybe wear on Vieira a little bit. Raffael. I think if he gets the takedowns, I think he can maybe find a submission or maybe find some ground and pound for a finish on the ground. Ultimately, I think Bukauskas gets it done. And I don't really see Raffael even getting another fight in the UFC. I think they might cut him after this because, like I said, he got stomped in his first fight, and Bukauskas is probably not necessarily that great in the 205 division. So, yeah, I think Bukauskas takes it. Not super confident. How confident you are in Bukauskas in this one, Carlos?
Like I said, I don't feel like very confident in it. Not because I think Raffael's not going to he's going to blow him out of the water or he's going to get the decision. I just think that he's safe. You know what I mean? Like he's going to come after you if he knows you're hurt. But Bukauskas is, he's had success in the ring, in the cage, and he's had some good victories. All the guys that he's had victory against are at the level or better than Raffael Cerqueira, and I feel he's going to get this victory. My whole thing is if this guy just sprints at him because he's embarrassed how he lost in his first performance in the octagon and just stuns him, which I don't really see that happening, but it would be a great comeback story, and it's not going to happen. But I'll go with Bukauskas. Do I feel super confident? No, I don't know why I don't, but I don't.
I did want to say as well, I don't know what tape study you did for this fight, but I had the pleasure of watching Bukauskas' last fight back where he fought Prachnio. And if you're an MMA fan, you know what I'm talking about. That fight was crazy because Bukauskas hurts Prachnio on the feet, and Prachnio gets up against the fence, and Bukauskas is wailing on him, and then all of a sudden from almost clinch range, what's his name? Bukauskas gets hit with a head kick from so close that rocks him, and it's literally like a complete shift in the fight. And when I remember watching that one back, that was a crazy one. I remember when I saw that live, where Bukauskas looks like he's about to finish, and then Prachnio lands a head kick from so close. Very entertaining fight. If you haven't seen that one, check that one out. But yeah, me and Carlos pretty much agree on this one. Bukauskas gets it done, and done fairly simply. And next up, we have got Eric McConico taking on Nursulton Ruziboev. And Carlos, who do you have in this one?
I'm going to go with Ruziboev in this one. The experience in the octagon, obviously, McConico is making his debut. Ruziboev had a loss to Buckley, but it was a competitive fight. He didn't get blown out of the water, and I think that obviously Buckley is head and shoulders better than McConico, and I think he's got a huge, size advantage in that weight class that McConico's not used to. I think his movement is better. One thing that I noticed about McConico that I didn't like even more was that he shifts when he throws the strikes, and when he shifts, he actually becomes square, and he throws exactly when he steps. So that's just asking to get caught with a straight right hand or a front kick on the way in. So I don't know. Like I can, if I were in Ruziboev's corner, I'd be like, let's exploit that, and I just don't think he's got the level to deal with Ruziboev. Is Ruziboev very good? No, he's not very good, but he's aggressive. He's got good straight punches, good kicks, and I think that's who's going to get the better of this one.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think Ruziboev gets this one done probably in the first. And it's funny that you said that about the exploiting the straight right or the straight shot down the middle when Eric gets square, because that was how Ruziboev was able to beat Bruno Ferreira in their fight. Yep. Bruno Ferreira came straight in, and I believe Ruziboev threw a straight right down the pipe and was able to knock him out. So I definitely think that's a shot that Ruziboev likes. He likes the straight shots, and a 6'5" guy, with the size that he has, like Carlos said, at this weight class, I mean, he can get some leverage and some pop on his shots, and he has submissions as well. So I agree. I think he can exploit the size advantage that he has, and At 34 years old, UFC debut. It's tough to really like Eric in this matchup. When I did watch some of his fights on the regional scene, again, his level of competition is just as we say in England, piss poor. It's just one of those things where you can tell if a guy is ready for the UFC by some of his level of competition. And to me, this fight is very much a case of 1+1=2. I think Ruziboev is on this part of the card early on the prelims because they know that this is going to be a one for the fans to see a finish. Now, don't get me wrong, Ruziboev is not somebody that I trust later on in fights, but I just don't think it gets there. I think he probably finishes him by KO in the first round. So going with Ruziboev as well, definitely somebody I'll parlay this week. If it does get to the third round, I think Eric is going to be so tired and a bloody mess that it probably won't even matter because of all the damage that he's accumulated. So definitely think Ruziboev gets it done and done early. And next up, news just in. This fight just got added not that long ago, and the Ground and Pound podcast is going to break it down for you. But we've got Austin Vanderford taking on Nikolay Veretennikov. I don't know how good that was, but I feel like that was probably not bad. First take.
We're gonna go with.
Yeah, we're gonna
go with Veretennikov.
Yeah, but
I'll go.
I didn't really get to see too much on these guys. I've actually seen Nikolay fight before, and he fought against Danny Barlow. And he took Danny Barlow to a split decision, and he does train out of King's MMA, so I am going to pick him on this one. And to tell you the God's honest truth, with Austin Vanderford, the only thing I know about Austin Vanderford is that he fought out of Bellator. Wasn't successful in Bellator. I watched him fight against Fabian Edwards, and he does look very slow and plodding, and that was quite a few years ago now. So I would imagine at the age of 34, his foot speed's not improved. Nikolay is somebody who trains at a good gym with much higher level competition. Austin Vanderford really, to me, is just somebody that's filling in a spot on the prelims right now. And quick little fun fact for you over at the Ground and Pound podcast: he is the boyfriend, or I believe fiance, of Paige Van Zant's. And if you get the time, I'm not suggesting anybody do it, but if you get the time and you want to go snooping on the internet, and his MMA isn't necessarily that something that keeps you entertained, I do believe that him and his wife do an OnlyFans together. Not trying to promote their content, not saying that I've looked, but fun little fact for you that I think this guy is somebody who's somebody on the internet.
This is what we're doing here. We're gonna promote this filth.
OnlyFans, if you want to sponsor the podcast, I'm just saying, I'm just joshing you. Yeah, I think Vanderford, I think he sucks. I think he's probably got more of a career doing that with his wife than he has in MMA. I think he pretty much sucks. He's flat-footed. He has a little bit of wrestling, but it's not going to matter in this matchup. I think Nikolay gets it done on the feet. I think he can get it done on the ground. Not super confident because Nikolay is 35 and yet to pick up a win in the UFC, but I just trust him a little bit more in this matchup just based on where he's training and the fact that I know that he was a little bit more prepared for this fight. From what I read, Vanderford is also only had 1 day to prepare for this fight. He took this fight on 1 day's notice, so maybe he was in the middle of filming. Who knows? But when he got the call.
That's what I was gonna say. He's definitely not training. So
yeah, exactly. He's training his stamina, but not the kind of stamina that we need to beat Nikolay. But yeah, I'm going with Nikolay. I had to figure something with some way of getting that in there. But yeah, Nikolay's the pick. Who do you have in this one, Carlos?
I knew you were gonna throw Paige in there, and she's such a sweetheart. How could you do that to her? I pretty much see it the same way. I would like to take Vanderford, but he doesn't do anything very impressive. The only thing I don't like is how Veretennikov gets a little hasty, and he likes to lean when he throws his strikes when he's coming at you. He likes his head is over his knees when he likes to throw when he's running at you, which leaves him open to takedowns for Vanderford. But Vanderford doesn't actually have a lot of control once he gets you on the bottom. I feel like Nikolay, is it Nikolay? Nikolay, right?
Yeah, Nikolay, yeah.
Okay, Nikolay. I feel like he's going to be able to get back up anyway. And I think he'll do more of the damage on the feet. Vanderford is pretty stocky. He's got one of those barrel-chested builds. He's pretty thick for the weight class. Um, but still, that reach advantage is going to Veretennikov, and I feel pretty confident in picking him in this one.
Yeah, I secretly do too. It's not something I'm probably going to put high up in terms of parlays, but I do feel like he should get it done in this matchup. I mean, the guy has 1 day's notice, regardless of his skill set, and it's tough to trust some guys who are higher level on 1 day's notice. So I just don't see what Austin's going to be able to do here, especially with no training camp. And you have to believe that Nikolay is somebody who's been in the gym and waiting for his opportunity to get back after losing his first fight in the UFC. And at the end of the day, I mean, Austin's winning at life. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, he's picking up a paycheck. I mean, I don't know how much he's fighting, but when I looked through his tape study and things like that, I know that he's not in Bellator anymore, obviously because of the roster going over to PFL and all that stuff. So at the end of the day, I mean, he's getting a payday and he goes home to Page. So he's winning at life, but I don't think he's going to win this one. I think Nikolay's gonna get it done. I think probably by decision. I don't necessarily think that he maybe gets the finish. I think Austin's tough enough to get to a decision, but I think we've got two firm picks for Nikolay here. And next up, we have got Ricky Simón, the Seattle, Washington native, taking on Jared Basharat. And I'm going to pass this one over to you first, Carlos. Who do you have in this one?
I mean, this one I'm actually leaning towards Basharat. Reason being is I think he's a little bit more complete. Um, in terms of wherever the fight goes, he can handle it there. He's not going to feel awkward. Ricky Simón has been very good. He's very good at taking people down, but he's not very good at controlling you while you're down there. And he's not really looking for submissions I mean, he's looking for ground and pound, but he leaves a lot of openings for you to get back up. So Basharat won't, if he gets down, he won't stay down there very long. Uh, Simón has been getting a little bit more in love with his boxing. It doesn't mean he's going to be able to use it very well. He's just an aggressive guy, and he's going to come at you and swing. So if he catches you, um, it looks more violent than it really is because I've seen him tag some guys clean, and the majority of them don't get hurt. Some of them do. Those are the ones that are pussies, but the other ones got a little beard. It all depends on stopping the takedowns of Simón. If he just keeps taking you down and you get back up and taking you down and you get back up, like he's just going to win the round with takedowns. And, I wouldn't want to see a fight like that happen, but I feel like this is going to be primarily on the feet. I think you'll see Simón try to take him down when he gets hurt. And I don't see Basharat having a problem stuffing it and staying on his feet.
Yeah, I got to agree with you, to be honest. I mean, if you've watched this podcast long enough to know, you know that the whole conspiracy corner that I sit in sometimes with the homegrown guy or the French guy fighting in France, but I don't think it's going to matter in this one for Simón. I do think that he has a good chance if he can make it a dogfight. In Javid's last fight when he fought against, I believe it was it Zabit? No, who's the guy he fought in his last fight? One of Zahabi's guys. The name will come to me in a moment. But
Amen.
yeah, that's the one. Thank you, Carlos.
Yep.
Yeah, when he fought him, he was putting on pressure, and I think that kind of caught Javid off guard. I think the thing with Javid is that he doesn't necessarily hurt his opponents enough. So I think sometimes with his opponents, what he does is he automatically is able to stand there and kind of keep everything, just a touch range, and there's no pressure. So his cardio, doesn't have to be an issue, and he can mix in takedowns. But I think if Ricky kind of makes it a dogfight, gets in his face, makes it scrappy, he could definitely come through as an underdog. But I am going to pick Basharat here for the simple reason that I just feel it's like his range and the fact that he can learn from his last fight, I think will be a telling factor in this fight. I think that, as somebody that just lost their undefeated streak, he's going to look at that fight and say, okay, what did I do wrong? He's going to say, okay, well, he pressured me. I wasn't able to get the respect of my opponent, so they walked me down. I'm not going to allow Ricky to do that. I'm going to put him on the back foot. I'm going to use my size, my length, my reach, mix in takedowns. I think ultimately, Basharat's going to be able to win the decision here, regardless of whether Simone is the hometown guy. And also the other thing I will say about Ricky is he has been on a losing streak, so obviously he might fight very desperate in his hometown. He might try to pick up the win, and this, maybe we see him retire. Who knows? Or maybe get cut after the multiple losses he's had. But yeah, I'm going to go with Basharat here, but not super confident because he doesn't necessarily do enough to win fights sometimes. He can kind of leave it out there as, at the end of rounds, where he doesn't throw and his opponent lands a couple of shots. And I just like to see a little bit more from him. I'm just kind of making the assumption that I think he's going to come back a little bit better after his last loss. But I think Ricky's probably alive. I wouldn't tell somebody to bet on him. He's not somebody I'm going to bet on this week. But like I said, I definitely think that he's live as the hometown guy because Basharat does leave it up to the judges sometimes. And next up, we have a name that I'm going to butcher. We've got Mansur Abdul-Malik. Nailed it. Taking on Nick Clegg. Is it Clegg or is it Klein? See, I butcher the simple. I do that. See, I got too cocky, ladies and gentlemen. That is the definition of getting too cocky right there. Is it Nick Klein or Nick Clegg? Nick Klein?
Klein.
Nick Klein.
Yep.
Blue collar Nick Klein. Let me start off by saying as well, Nick Klein is a concrete layer. Is why his nickname is Blue Collar. And when you watch this fight on Contender Series, the man is, a hardworking guy. He looks like a gritty guy, somebody that will make a fight a scrap. I don't know necessarily that this matchup will suit him. I think that this is going to be a tough one for him. I have seen on the regional scene, he can grind out victories with his wrestling. I don't think that's going to matter in this one. I think Malik, former Division I wrestler, very, very good wrestling, very explosive, very long reach for the division. Fights and trains with Sean Strickland and Eric Nixon. I like the fact that in his fights that he's shown an ability to finish people. And I think that there's no secret, and I'm sure Carlos is probably going to touch on this too, that if fights get later on, we haven't necessarily seen that much of him, and he does tend to slow down in fights. I just think that for Malik, this is one of those fights where he is the better athlete, and I think that he is more explosive. I think that he can get it done maybe inside the distance. Look for Klein to, I don't know why I keep saying Clegg. Klein to show that tough sort of blue collar spirit and try to make this fight last a little bit longer and put it into deep waters. But ultimately, I'm going to pick Malik. Not super confident. I think he's like minus 1,000, Carlos. I don't know about what your opinion is on the odds. I don't know if you saw any of the odds, but Malik's like minus 1,000. I think that I'm going to go nowhere near that this week, just purely because if the fight gets out of round, 2.5 minutes after the second round or into the second round, I'd be worried, because I know we see him slow down. So I'm going to pick Malik. Not super confident, not minus 1,000 confident, that's for sure. And yeah, I'm going with Malik. Who do you have in this one?
Well, yeah, I'm going with Abdul-Malik in this. The reason being is I feel like Klein is pretty decent grappler, and his striking doesn't look incredibly dangerous. And I thought Mansur had a pretty easy time controlling Todorovic, and I think Todorovic is a much harder matchup than Nick Klein. It doesn't mean he's going to win, but what it means is I think Mansur is going to be able to control him a little better. Nick Klein says that he's unusually big for the weight class. I don't think anyone looks any bigger than Todorovic. He's Malik was able to control him. He's able to get him out of there. And that's what it's going to take to change this fight right here is just one shot, I think. I think if it gets into the grappling, I think that Malik can actually control him on the ground. If he needs to, he can take him down and control him. And I think on the feet, that's what worries me when it comes with his cardio. I think his wrestling is going to be just fine. I think he's a guy who knows he's strong, are powerful, and has a good shot. if he catches you, and he'll swing with everything for it. So I hope he doesn't just swing to swing. I hope like in his training they're teaching him, hey, when you see the opening, take it. You see the opening, take it. If you don't see it, don't throw it. And I think they're doing probably just that. I'm just gonna make the assumption, and that's why I'm taking him.
Yeah, exactly. He's training with a good camp to be somebody that's going to be able to come in and tell him like what he needs to refine for sure. And when Nick was fighting on the Contender Series, I did notice that the rear naked choke that he got, he didn't have any hooks in, and he was able to choke the guy out. And I think with Malik, he wrestled 3 years at the University of Maryland, Division One. So I don't think that he's necessarily going to be able to just snatch up Malik's neck like that and not have hooks in and not. I just think that Malik overall as a specimen of an athlete, but also as well, he has the wrestling to fall back on. I think his only downfall is his cardio, but I don't think it'll matter in this matchup, like I said. And yeah, I actually quite like Nick Klein's post-fight speech that he had. I know we talked about it before. I saw what you were talking about when you were talking about John Jones is the best fighter, and I was like, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
not the greatest, impression, I think, for some of the fans. He goes up to Dana White, and if for those of you who don't know, he goes up to Dana White and he says, I think John Jones is the best fighter on planet Earth or whatever, because he wanted to get signed to the UFC. Kind of a little bit corny, I will have to say, but got to respect the guy, blue collar guy. But ultimately, I think Malik gets it done. And
Well, I'd rather him say that than anything Bryce Mitchell's going to say. So let's
that is true.
let's just go with that, man. I'm still surprised with that one.
Yeah, exactly. We could fill up another 3 hour segment on the show of all the dumb shit that Bryce Mitchell says. Yeah, we have next up taking on Andre Fili is taking on Mazel Acosta. Is that how you say it? Mezilk Costa.
I'm going to say Mazakiel Acosta.
Ezekiel Costa. Yeah.
Mazakiel Acosta.
Yeah. Who do you have in this one, Carlos?
In this one, I don't know how you're going to feel about it, but I got Andre Fili.
Mm-hmm.
I think Acosta is he's got decent takedowns, decent grappling. I just feel that Fili can best him on the ground if he wants to. He's got a lot of wrestling. He's been working with what's the name, Alpha Male for years.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of good wrestling. He's got never really paid attention to his submission game. I know he's got a lot of good transitions on a little technical. He's usually pretty good when he's using his long arms, his range, his legs to get him in and out. Like he's pretty good. And Costa needs to kind of get you swinging wild a little bit. Like the way he pressures you and he just kind of comes after you. Like he's got to catch you, not being desperate, but panic fighting to catch you with something. And I don't think Fili's going to be in that type of situation in this fight. I don't know the best way to describe it, but it's like when Costa's attacking you, like you have to need to engage to get him off you, and that's how he usually gets the one up on you. And I don't see that happening with Fili. And I think Fili can stuff his takedowns. I think if he stuffs them, he can get back up. And so I'm taking Andre in this one.
I gotta be very honest with you. I mean, when Carlos and I do the breakdowns every week, we do kind of discuss before the show, like who do you have in this one? How did you see this one? A little bit, and usually it's the ones where we have trouble, just to kind of see if the other person has a very interesting take. And I got to be honest, this is the one I struggled with this week. I went back and forth on this one like 6 or 7 times, and ultimately, I think I'm going to go with Costa. And the reason I'm going to go with Costa is the same reason that you've heard me say before in a couple of other fights is Fili being 34, miles on the clock. He does have UFC experience, but we did see him go to a split decision against, who was it in his last fight? I'm just trying to think. Cub Swanson. We saw him go, who's obviously an older guy and not necessarily an up and coming rising star in the division. So going to split decisions with some of the older guys in the division does have me a little bit worried. I do feel like if Fili makes this a wrestling match, that he'll have a lot of success. I think that if he can wrestle Costa and control him, I think that he could definitely win the fight. Both guys can crack on the feet if they land clean. Costa hasn't a good ability to scramble, so he is tough to take down. And when he fought against Shara Ulanbekov, he was able to, he got taken down, but ultimately was able to sweep and get back to his feet and control different positions and ultimately find a rear naked choke. But I'm just purely going to pick Costa based on the fact that he's the younger guy. I do think that Fili is live. I definitely think that Fili could win the fight. Both guys have been dropped. Both guys have been finished before in their career, so anything is possible. But I'm just going to trust the younger guy. All that being said, like I said, Fili could definitely win, and it wouldn't surprise me, especially if he wrestled. But it's a tough one because I wouldn't be surprised if Costa was able to land something on the feet. I wouldn't be surprised if Fili was able to land something on the feet. I think both guys leave some openings, and definitely not two fighters that I'm super confident with. But ultimately, I am going to go with Costa to get it done, just purely because of the fact that he's the younger guy, and I have to feel like he's making some improvements throughout his career. Whereas I feel like with Fili, you know what you're going to get, and I wasn't really impressed with some of his entries and some of his wrestling in some of the fights that I watched. So I think ultimately Costa gets it done. And next up, we'll find out if the curse is true. We have Ion Cutelaba, the Hulk, taking on Ibo Aslan. And I'm going to pass this one over to you, Carlos, to start us off. Who do you have in this one?
I've seen Cutelaba fight a smart fight. So he's very game and can win this without being as they call him, without being a Hulk in it, being crazy and berserk, out of control. But for some reason, okay, I'm going to take this guy, Ibo Aslan. I don't think he's very good. I actually think Cutelaba is better. But I also think Cutelaba is going to get caught in a little bit of a firefight with him. And I think he's probably going to get stunned. Not too confident about it because this one kind of comes down to who hits who first. And if Cutelaba gets in a situation where he's close and he can hit him, then he'll get him out of there. But I feel like Ibo's probably going to be able to reach Cutelaba before he gets inside. And I'm not incredibly impressed. It's fun to watch knockouts. I watched Ibo get knockouts. I saw when he what was the name of my boy? The Pleasure Man.
Tricali?
I,
Yeah.
yeah, I like Turkali. He's funny. Like I can't hate on him. But when he fought the Pleasure Man, and it I've seen Turkali fight at a better level, but came down to Ibo's level for that fight. That's what I feel. Cutelaba, it could happen. He is a better fighter. He's a little bit more better all around, and I've seen him fight smart, and he should fight that way. But I feel like he can be dragged into an Aslan slugfest, and I can see Aslan getting the better of it. Um, I feel Aslan is not a streak, I guess. I wouldn't call that streaking, but he is the hard hand, and I'll take Ebo, and I don't feel too confident about it, but that's my pick.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, if you want an accurate breakdown for this fight, what I suggest you all do is you take a moment, one, to like and subscribe, but also two, to reach into your pocket, find the coin that is in your pocket, and just flip it, because that is pretty much how this fight is going to play out. I think this fight comes down to whoever lands first, whoever lands a big shot, finds the chin of their opponent. Both guys are very hittable. Both guys can, knock their respective opponent out, and it is pretty much a coin flip. And for that reason, I'm actually going to go with Cutelaba. My reasoning behind it is just simple, because I look at Aslan and I think to myself, well, the guy can crack. And out of the two, I'd probably say he has a little bit more power, and he does throw straighter shots. He does get hit a lot, same as Cutelaba, but the only difference is to me is the level of competition that Cutelaba has fought with his experience. To me, this just feels like one of those ones where people count out Cutelaba and then he's able to pull off for the victory. He is the slight underdog in this one too, so I do lean to him in terms of a value play for, this fight being kind of a 50-50 fight. I'd rather take the underdog. He's got more experience, like I said, and the other thing I will touch upon too is that I think out of the two, Cutelaba can mix in wrestling. Aslan was able to defend all of the takedowns so far in the UFC when he fought against the Pleasure Man. He did go 0 for 8 on Aslan in that fight, but Cutelaba does have better wrestling and can mix in wrestling, so there is that he can obviously consider. And I don't know why, but I had this thought in my head that Cutelaba was like 33, 34 years old, taking a lot of damage, whatever. The guy is still only 31 years old, so in terms of stature as well, very similar in height, very similar in reach. So I actually lean to Cutelaba. I don't love it. He is the underdog. He's not going to be my lock of the week or my dog of the week this week. It's just a simple case of the experience and a 50-50 fight. Just give me the underdog. And we've seen both guys get dropped and chinned. And Cutelaba's in his last fight was able to go all 3 rounds, and Aslan to me looked like he was slowing down quite considerably in his not his last fight, but the one against Pleasure Man. So I just think Cutelaba can mix in takedowns, and on the feet too. I like the fact that he kind of stays a little bit within himself at times. Whereas I think Aslan, not necessarily the most skilled guy on the feet. I think he relies more on his power. Whereas I think Cutelaba, he will fight behind a jab, or he will throw in combinations and kind of fight within himself at times. Having said that, watch him come out and act like a crazy man. But I'm going with Cutelaba just purely because of the value. So pretty difficult to call. And next up, we have got, making his UFC debut, we have Julius Walker taking on Alonzo Menifield. And Carlos, I'm going to pass this one over to you. Who do you have in this one?
Well, I think I told you earlier in the week. I said I kind of like the look of Walker, not because like he's super impressive. It's just the fact that he kind of has a plan when he fights. He's he kind of strikes to get into a clinch, to get you up against the cage, and to take you down, and that's where he wants to do most of his work. He doesn't necessarily want to stay up and throw heat all the time. Actually, in most of his fights, he doesn't want to throw any heat, but um, he's not a brute like Menifield. Like, he's not going to come out and just swing with his eyes closed. Menifield has gotten better with that, so I'm not going to just keep saying that that's how he is. But, he's usually aggressive at times on the feet, and sometimes it gets him in trouble. Uh, he's looking for he's looking to go for strikes on the ground and finish from the even strikes to open up a submission, which is kind of calculated from somebody that hasn't been fighting very long. I don't think he's had a long career. He's had some good amateur fights, but I don't think he's been fighting for such a long time. I think he was a former collegiate football player, and he came over to MMA. And it was Walker, sorry. And Menifield the same. He's a former football player, college football player, turned into a MMA fighter. But he has been making strides. He's gotten a lot better since he's started to work with Pat Barry. And because it's like because I've seen him get better. It is Walker's debut. I've seen him beat better fighters than Walker, and I think I'm going to have to lean towards Menifield. Um, Do I think it's going to be a finish? I don't think so. I think he's going to win by decision. I just think that Walker, even though like I think this is a very first tough matchup to be in the cage with, but I think he's going to be okay. I think he's actually meant to be here, and I think he's going to be all right. I think he's going to lose, but I think he'll be all right after.
Yeah, Julius Walker only took up MMA about 2 years ago, from what I saw. So, like Carlos said, not a very long time at all. And the thing to me with Walker is he's not necessarily the craziest athlete or anything like that. I've seen his fights, like Carlos said, where he likes to get in the clinch and can have some slick submissions for sure. But I really just question his level of competition. Some of the fights that he's taken out of his 6-0, I think maybe 3 or 4 of them, the guys don't even have winning records. So very tough to sort of really get a read on how good his skill level is, especially at 6-0. I mean, he could be very, very good, finishing these guys on the regional scene like he's supposed to, or he could be terrible, and this could just be a Menifield, finish to get the crowd hyped for the main card. Menifield has me a little bit worried, obviously, because, to get the negatives out of the way, 37 years old. He has trained with Pat Barry. I'm not sure if he's at the camp with Pat Barry for this one. I believe he might have moved gyms from what I was reading, which gives me a little bit of cause for concern. But he did lose his last two to Carlos Olberg and who was the other person he fought against? The name doesn't spring to mind, but I just remember seeing it, thinking, well, that's not a bad. Neither of those are bad losses. It was the Russian guy who's got good kickboxing, but both guys, as I say, high level guys in the rankings, not bad losses. So, to me, this is a big step down in competition for Menifield, and I think that Menifield is somebody who, at times in these early parts of his career, he wanted to be able to sort of muscle out of positions and use the fact that he was a physical specimen and use his strength to get out of positions. And like Carlos said, he has got better over time to be a little bit more technical. I don't see where Walker has the advantage in this fight, because I think if he gets the fight to the ground, he's not catching Menifield in some armbar. I think Menifield will be able to power out of those positions, or he's been around the block to know what he's doing to get out of those positions. I think on the feet, in the clinch, I think Menifield is going to be much more, stronger, much more physically dominant, and he's, had hours and hours in those positions. And this is a big step up, like I said, on a big stage, which Menifield's been on many times, and Julius Walker, has not been in a big situation with a big crowd. So, I'm going to go with Menifield. I am fairly confident in him that he should get it done. Maybe Julius Walker proves me wrong, and he's got something that I haven't seen, but when I look at the tape, I'm not wowed. And to be only doing MMA for 2 years and fighting a guy that's in the rankings, a guy like Menifield that's been around the block, I'm a little worried for him. So I think Menifield may find a finish on the ground, maybe with ground and pound, to get the main card rolling. I am probably going to bet on him. He is probably going to be fairly high up in my parlays this week. I'm going with Menifield to get it done. I'm trusting you, Menifield. I'm trusting you.
I'm not saying that Menifield, he's been working on his striking no matter what, and yeah, I did see him work a few fights with Pat Barry, and it's not the fact that he's become more technical
Hmm.
on the feet. It's the fact that he's just allowing himself to be more patient, because he gets sloppy because he gets tired. He throws everything with you know with all of his might. The
Yeah.
problem is just like, if you just got to learn to pick your spots. If you want to continue to fight like that, which is why there's so many openings on him. The higher level that he fights, that he's got a 50-50 chance to hurt you, but most likely those guys know how to evade and then, diffuse the power and take him down. And his striking still looks wild. It's just he throws a little bit less now. And it's like, can he go somewhere to learn how to strike technically? He can. Is he going to do that? No. When he gets in the ring, he's going to fight like it's an all-out street fight. He just needs to learn how to breathe, relax, and take the next strike. Take the next strike. He's not somebody that's going to read, react, and look for openings. It's never going to be him. Not at this age, not at this time. But I do feel he's going to get the better of Walker. That I just wanted to clarify. Like, I don't think he's learning the secrets to stand up. I just think he's learning at least how to be patient.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a fair assessment. And next up, we do have Gene Silva taking on Melsik Baghdasaryan. And I'm gonna pass this one over to you first, Carlos. Who do you have in this one?
Well, I didn't really pay attention to Silva, and then he fought um, Jourdain, and I
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that kid. And then he fought Drew Dober, and Drew Dober's a tough kid, and he put a beating on both of them. So this fight, I think, is at 145.
Hmm.
At 155, he was fighting Dober, and Dober was able to absorb some of those shots, even though his face was swelling up. I think he got cut too over his eye. But as of right now, I just don't know if Baghdasaryan to be able to take a shot. In return, Baghdasaryan, the pressure that he puts on you is pretty damn impressive with how technical he can be with his striking. So we're gonna have to see if that one shot pop from Gene is gonna get the job done, or is Baghdasaryan just overwhelming? Because I am kind of impressed by both guys, and I'm gonna say this one is another guaranteed banger.
Hmm.
I don't know if you agree with that, but I'm looking forward to this one.
Yeah, who are you picking in this one?
I'm going with Silva.
Okay, you are going with Silver. Okay, I just had to make sure. Yeah, I think this one could be fight of the night. Just to touch on that, I think
Yeah.
this has got all the makings for fight of the night, in my opinion. And I like Silver in this one too. Just to kind of touch a little bit on Baghdasaryan. One of the things I do like that he really does is he likes to blast the back leg. So if he's standing southpaw, he'll smash the kick into the body. He'll throw a head kick. He has a really nice sort of back kick. And the thing with him too is that we've seen him get taken down and out grappled and out wrestled. In his last fight, I paid attention to the fact that he knew that was a hole in his game and he'd gone over to AKA to try to fix that. Ultimately, he kept getting taken down by Tucker Lutz. I don't necessarily think that Silva will come in with a wrestle heavy game plan, but it's just something to kind of pay attention to. Him being over at Fighting Nerds, and they like to come up with these good game plans for the fighters. So maybe Silva mixes in a couple of takedowns, and I have seen him shoot for shoot for guillotines or in clinches and things like that. He will jump gilly. So we have seen both of Baghdasaryan's losses come by way of submission. So Silva does have 2 guillotines on his record. So there's a possibility that could be the outcome. I know everybody always looks for the KO, but there is that still possibility that there's something they see as a hole in his game. But I think this one mostly just plays out on the feet. I think it's a very back and forth striking match. Baghdasaryan has a nice history of kickboxing before he got into MMA. That's why he only has 10 MMA fights on his record. The thing that I don't like about Baghdasaryan is I think with Silva, if he can get into kind of that medium range, like inside the kicking range, I think Silva's hands are much better. Kind of like what we said about the Imavov Izzy fight is that when Izzy's at range and he can kick, and keep the fight at kicking range, he can have a lot of success. But when he doesn't manage the distance and guys get into boxing range with him, he'll get lit up. And that's pretty much how I see this fight going. I think if Silva can kind of get on the inside and throw his uppercuts and go to rip to the body like he does, and kind of throw shots with his boxing at weird angles, I think ultimately he can definitely have success. I don't necessarily know if Silva gets the finish in this one, but I like the fact that Silva can mix in some funky attacks. He likes the spinning elbows and things like that, which I think is pretty impressive and entertaining for the fans. And I don't know how everybody feels about Silva, but I feel like there's this kind of like aura around him right now. Like he's kind of building something. I don't think people necessarily thought that he was going to be anything special. He was maybe going to be a bit overhyped, but up until this point, I feel like he's lived up to that hype. I'm going to go with Silva. I think he gets it done on the feet, probably by decision. I do think as well that the Fighting Nerds are going to have him well prepared for a good striker. They're going to obviously, smother him, like I said. And the only thing that kind of has me concerned about Silva in this matchup is he did miss weight when he fought at featherweight the last time he fought. So he missed weight at 145. He went up and fought Drew Dober at 155, and then he's now coming back down. So just keep an eye on the weigh-ins before if you are betting on him, because obviously him missing weight might be a factor. But we've seen him miss weight before and be able to take fights deep. So it's something I would just keep an eye on. But I think ultimately Silva gets it done. Whether he mixes in takedowns or on the feet, I think he can have success. And next up, we have Gene Matsumoto taking on Rob Font. And I'm going to pass this one over to you. Actually, I'll take this one first. So we have Gene Matsumoto, the young and up-and-comer, 16-0, taking on Rob Font. And to me, this one is tough because obviously you have a 12-year age gap between the two. And It's always tough sometimes to trust somebody at the age of 37. Rob has been there and fought some of the tougher competition in the division. And obviously, Rob isn't necessarily the most skilled grappler. He can grapple, but that's not necessarily his strong suit. He likes to keep things on the feet and usually box. Doesn't throw a ton of kicks, but has decent hands. Obviously, he moved over to the gym over with Vras Sahabi, and where him and Calvin have both been getting in work over there. And the guy is very skilled. I mean, he obviously just got his win in his last fight against Kyler Phillips, which Carlos did actually pick several months ago. He was a big underdog. I didn't see anybody picking Rob Font, so hats off to Carlos in that one. But I like Gene Matsumoto. There's something about this kid, 16-0. There's that confidence of him being undefeated, which I really like. He has really, really nice Muay Thai. Slams the leg kick, which I think will be a really big weapon in this fight against Font, who does like to kind of, keep his feet planted and throw strikes with the hands. I think he can smash up that lead leg. I have to think that both guys hopefully will come in and make weight and be feasible for the fight in terms of their cardio. I would give the cardio edge probably to Font, seeing as he's fought 5 rounds before. I think that Matsumoto also is really nice on the counter. Like, he has good pop when Font comes in, and I could see him, landing a nice shot on the counter. I also think as well that Matsumoto can mix in takedowns, which we've seen Font get taken down and held down before in other fights. So for those reasons, I like the young, undefeated guy here. We do have to remember that even though Font did win his last fight, he was on a losing streak before then. So, I do think that Gene hasn't tasted defeat, and I think he's going to make it 17-0. I think he can mix in the takedowns, and I think he can also mix in the striking and chew up that lead leg. And assuming that his weight cut and everything goes fine, I assume his gas tank's going to be there too. I'm going to go with Gene Matsumoto. Not super confident, but I do think that he'll get it done. It's more of a lean than a like on Gene Matsumoto this week. But who do you have in this one, Carlos?
Okay, I do like Matsumoto. I feel he has more tools to get the job done. Not that Font doesn't have the tools. I think he has the similar tools. I think he limits himself to the boxing. I feel it's going to be like who can stay busier in this fight. And I feel that Matsumoto's movement is going to be a little bit of a problem. Font's going to want to have him sit in a spot and land, so he's going to spend some time chasing. I do think that Font can either put you out with a shot or change the tide of the fight, even if he is losing against Matsumoto. 25 years old, I think he'll be busier, and I think he could probably take a good shot from Rob Font, because I think this kid's talented. With that said, as much as I want to go with Rob Font, because I feel there's an upset coming, because there's going to be some holes that Font is going to find based on experience, because I could see the holes on Matsumoto based on experience. I'm going to go with Matsumoto because I feel he's going to move and stay busy. And I think the judges are going to like him staying busy. And I'm going to go with Matsumoto in this one. I am definitely not confident in this one.
Yeah, I'm not as confident in this one as well. The thing that has me a little bit worried, I'll be honest, is I think if this was a full camp for both guys, I would be more confident in Matsumoto. The thing that has me worried is the fact that they kind of threw this fight together on somewhat short notice. So I'm a little bit concerned that, like with Matsumoto, finding out late that, how does the weight cut go? He is pretty jacked, and you have to think that the guy at a young age, is kind of always being ready for the call from the UFC to fight. So I feel like he's going to be ready for the opportunity, but that kind of has me a little bit worried just because of, when stuff's kind of thrown together last minute, you never really know what a guy's doing and what, work he's putting in. And Rob Font's a tough guy at the end of the day. He's been around the block. He's got all the skills that he needs to win a fight. And, he might might show some can't even speak. That's how excited I am for the fights, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, Rob might be able to show some savvy veteran experience in this one and kind of outschool the youngster. But yeah, I think Matsumoto has all the tools to be able to get this done. Just the short notice kind of has me a little bit worried for both guys not having a full camp.
The thing is, Rob Font has had a full camp, and he's had a full camp for somebody who is a mover, and that's what makes me worry about. Is he was going to fight Dominic Cruz, and Cruz had to pull out of this one, but Font has been training for this since I think the last time we spoke was December. So he's known this fight has been coming. So Matsumoto's the one stepping in on short notice. My only thing is Font is very patient and he's stalking, and it's like, is that something Matsumoto, coming from kickboxing, can see very well? Because the rounds that Rob Font gets in is all in boxing range. So if he stalks you and stays in close, I don't think Matsumoto has as good a shot as I believe. I believe that if he uses his wheels, not gets on his bike, but at least can keep some distance and come in and attack when he's ready, because he's got the speed to do it and he's got the wheels to do it. I think he can make it busy when it counts and can get the victory on the for the decision. That's where that's why I'm a little shaky on it. Is I know he's last minute. I know Font's been working, but Matsumoto's young. He's been in the gym. He's got to cut the weight. I don't necessarily know how heavy he is. I don't know if you ever heard how big he comes down from, but he is a pretty solid kid at that weight class, and he does have thick legs, and that also plays a part in cutting weight very quickly. I'm still going with Gene. I think he's got it. I'm sure that the cartel will not be happy with me, but I want them to prove me wrong.
Yeah, I also just want to say as well, if we get to Friday and Gene Matsumoto misses weight, I would definitely encourage, maybe a couple of bets for Rob Font. I definitely think that this is kind of a toss up, and like Carlos has said, Font's had a full camp training for Dominic Cruz, so you have to think that he's going to be ready for a full 3-round fight. So I definitely don't hate a bet on Rob Font as an underdog. I think the fact that Gene, you don't know how Gene's going to come in, whereas Rob's had a full camp. I definitely think that that's something to consider. I'm not going to bet on it because I'm not super confident in a 37-year-old who's come off a losing streak other than his last fight. Rob is I don't want to say he's over the hill, because I don't think he is over the hill. I think he's definitely somebody in the division that can still make noise. It's just hard to trust somebody at that age, especially at the lighter weight divisions. But yeah, like I said, it wouldn't hurt to throw a couple of bucks on Rob Font as an underdog, especially if Gene misses weight. So that's one to keep an eye out for. And next up, we have the co-main event of Seattle, Washington's event. We have Brandon Allen taking on Anthony Hernandez, the rematch that nobody wanted, but we've got. And I'm going to pass this one over to you first, Carlos. Who do you have in this one?
In this matchup, I took Brendan Allen. This is going to be the second time I go against Hernandez. I might even pick him by the time I'm done going over this, but here we go. I took Brendan Allen for right now. I think he's more capable on the feet. I think his ground control. I think his ground control is good if he gets you down and goes for ground and pound. You know what I mean? And just holds position. That could create openings for submissions. But the problem is what I've seen in some of his past fights are he actually likes to go for the submission and will give up the position to see if he gets it or not. And a lot of times he doesn't get it. That's what worries me. Hernandez fights exactly the same way they did in their first fight. He wants to drown you in the cage. He wants to get you on your back. He wants to get you up against the cage. He wants to make it dirty. He wants to grind out that victory, and he wants to empty your gas tank. The problem is Brendan Allen's gas tank is pretty damn good. And for a 3-round fight, if this were 5, I would say, yeah, maybe a 5-round fight. But in a 3-round fight, Brendan Allen has gotten better on his feet since their first fight, and he's pretty slick on the ground as well. So probably not the best pick to take, and the confidence level is, abysmal. But I will go with Brendan Allen in this one.
Hmm. Brandon Allen, I do believe, is a 2-1 underdog. Just so that you know.
Okay,
I
I had a feeling.
I I actually looked at this matchup when I first saw it announced on paper a couple of weeks ago, and I did think to myself, Brandon Allen could actually be a tough matchup for Fluffy. And then doing the tape study and doing the research, you find out that these two guys fought very early on in their career for the LFA belt. So obviously this being a rematch, I was surprised about. I didn't know that, and that kind of made me look into it a little bit deeper. And Carlos actually said exactly what I was going to say was, if this was 5 rounds, I would be very confident in Hernandez. Hernandez did win the first fight between these two guys, if anybody was wondering. But if it was 5 rounds, I'd be all over Hernandez, because I just feel like he can use the 5 round pace that he has to be able to grind out the victory. The fact that it's 3 rounds has me a little bit worried, because Brandon Allen knows that he's got 3 rounds, so he knows that he's had 5 round experiences, especially in his last few fights. And Brandon Allen did fight against Andre Muniz, who has great submissions and great skills himself, and he was able to go to the ground with him and beat him up on the ground. So I'm sure that he's not worried about going to the ground with Hernandez. As far as the wrestling's concerned, I'm sure he wants to get that back, and he wants to be able to game plan for a guy who honestly has just shown nothing but grit and toughness, and to be able to break people with his cardio and his wrestling. So you kind of know exactly what you're going to get from Hernandez. I am going to pick Hernandez. I think if this was 5 rounds, I'd feel a little bit more confident. I wouldn't be surprised if Allen was able to do enough in the first 2 rounds to be able to get the decision. But ultimately, I think Hernandez puts a pace on him, and he just continues to chain wrestle over and over again. And Allen is unable to do anything with that. I don't necessarily think that he'll get the finish. I think Allen will definitely survive. I think this is one that goes to the judges' scorecards. And I think Fluffy is just going to be able to control positions and do damage like we've seen him do in pretty much all of his fights up until this point. And I just don't feel like Allen has that power to be able to get the respect of Fluffy like Michel Pereira did in the first round, or who was it, Kopylov in their fight, where I just think Fluffy can, kind of mix in the wrestling whenever he wants to, and Allen's going to accept those positions and try to, maybe scramble, but have no success, because Hernandez is the better wrestler out of the two, whereas Allen, I think, is the better jiu-jitsu practitioner. So, ultimately, I'm going to go with Fluffy. I think he gets it done, and I think he gets it done probably by decision. But I do understand where Carlos is coming from with the Allen pick, though, because it kind of, the skill sets to me kind of balance out, and the fact that it was a rematch, I think that you can kind of, sort of look at it and say, well, I don't think Hernandez should be this big of a favorite in the rematch. But yeah, I like Hernandez to get it done, but not super confident. And last but by no means least, we have the main event of Henry Triple C Cejudo taking on Song Yadong. And I'm going to pass this one over to Carlos. Who do you have in the main event, Carlos?
In the main event, Cejudo is, Triple C champ in 2 weight classes, and that's when he was Henry Cejudo, or Triple C. I think those days have passed, and I think the fact that he's at 35, this is going to sound weird, or stupid, but when he fought Marab, I understand Marab is he's a cardio machine, but the size difference between Marab and Cejudo was very apparent.
Yeah.
And I think he has a hard time with guys, maybe just one weight class up, whatever, but guys that are slightly bigger than him, I think he has a hard time controlling them. And his freestyle wrestling, he's going to get you to the ground, but he's not going to necessarily hold you there. And I went with Song Yadong in this one. I just felt like, I'm going to restate, the 3 years retired from MMA when he was in his prime. I'd say somewhat his prime, because he's 37 now, and you would say 3 years ago he was, I guess, getting past his prime. But That's when he was at his most dangerous. Uh, both coming off like some tough losses, you know. I'm going with the Yadong because I mean he did lose to was it Peter Yan?
Mhm.
And Peter Yan is an animal, and he was in that fight. I think the first round, and then Yan just took over from there. It was like the Peter Yan of old, and he just pretty much dominated that matchup. I don't think that's going to happen. I think Song Yadong is a little too big. I think he's definitely too fast. He's too quick for Cejudo. I think he's a bigger grappler. I think he's going to stuff the takedowns. If he does get taken down, I think he's going to get back up with ease. Um, he's younger, faster, quicker, constantly improving. Like I said, at 135, Cejudo's wrestling abilities are good, but they're not great. And that's why I'm going to take Song. This might even end. I mean, Cejudo's a tough guy, but I could see Song landing some bombs on him too, because he's going to utilize that speed advantage, and I could see him getting him out of there. But I'm going to say Cejudo's tough. It's going to go to decision. I'll take Song Yadong.
Yeah, I share the same sentiment you do. It's tough. I don't know what the stat is or what the percentages are, but the guys who are older in the lower weight classes have a very, very small percentage of victory. And Henry Cejudo being 38, he actually I think he just turned 38 not that long ago. Being 11 years is older is not something that I'm looking to bet on or to pick. So I am going to go with Song Yadong. And I think the thing with Song that impresses me as well is like fighting out a team alpha male. He shows improvements from fight to fight, and the guy to me is very patient on the feet. He likes to throw bombs with the hands, but it's measured pressure. Like he'll pressure his opponent, and he doesn't try to go wild. He always stays within himself, and everything he does looks like it's something he's practiced. Which I think is a great mantra for him as when he fights, because you know exactly what you're going to get from him. He throws nice calf kicks too, which I really like, and I think that will help slow the movement of Cejudo, who likes to kind of bounce in and out of the pocket and be kind of a small, sort of speedy guy in the division. Um, and I think the power on the side of Song Yadong, I think if he rips to the body, he can slow down Cejudo. And I do think that Cejudo will mix in takedowns. That's probably the one thing I will say that he can have success with. I think he'll have a really tough time holding down Yadong, because in fights I've seen Song fought against Ricky Simone. Even though Simone was able to get Song Yadong down to the ground, he was able to pop right back up. He has good urgency to get up from takedowns and then continue to fight at a high pace. Cejudo, to me, I just feel like that, like Carlos said, the 3 years away from the sport, in his prime, whether you think it was or not, it's a long time away from the sport to come back and to lose to the champ. I think MMA just moves so fast that I think the sport's kind of left him behind a little bit. Um, I don't necessarily think that Song will get a finish. If it will, I think it'll be a late finish, if anything. I think we probably see the judges' scorecards, but I think ultimately Song gets it done. I think he gets his hand raised. I think him being at Team Alpha Male is probably a good gym for him to be at to prepare for a guy like Cejudo. Knowing the wrestling's probably coming, he has the power on the feet and to mix in the leg kicks. I think he's got a very, very good style to beat somebody like Cejudo. And I'm actually going to go out on a limb and say I'm fairly confident in him this week. I don't really see what Cejudo does over the course of 5 rounds outside of just landing a freak shot or a freak head kick or something, or a knee. I don't really see what he has over 5 rounds that he can do to Song. So, yeah, I feel like Song is somebody that you could put in your parlays this week. I feel fairly safe with him, and yeah, I think he gets it done. Before we wrap things up, Carlos, do you have anything that you want to say to the people?
No, I just say thank you for listening. And unfortunately, if I keep dropping in and out or you keep hearing it, I'm like still trying to figure out exactly what type of technical issues I could do to fix this. And, you know, trying hard, people. I'm trying hard.
Yep.
I'm
Yep.
doing it for you.
Yep. Much like
No,
the
I'm,
fight.
I'm, I'm trying to. I'm trying. I don't know if you on your end like it sounds good or not, but hopefully it sounded a little better today.
Yep. Yep. And I will say as well, it's like the fight game. We're always evolving, always getting better. So, like I said, we'll get Carlos's connection fixed, and we'll be all good. Enjoy the fights this weekend. Like and subscribe. Leave a comment. Let us know who you guys have in the main event. And we'll see you guys next week.